Hello ladies and gentlemen, savvies and savettes, I am VoxAgon, and today we're going to take a gander at The Final Station and its DLC, The Only Traitor, by Do My Best Games. I feel it important to do this impression framed by both the main game as well as its DLC. Each title, even if played in isolation, are compelling experiences, but together they are a sublime beast indeed, especially from a narrative and contextual lens. For now, however, let us enjoy a moment of silence and let the conductor and the infected take us to our first station. I think it is difficult to gander at the final station without immediately noticing its aesthetic. For me, it was one of the primary reasons why I picked up this title. It is a clean, controlled, and exceptionally gorgeous use of pixel art. It is perhaps an easy, modern means of video game graphics to create pixel art for one's title, but it is also easy to notice when this has been done poorly, and unfortunately to the extent of the artist's talent, and which has been done by way of perfect, measured control and restraint by a capable and clever artist. And the art in The Final Station certainly is of the latter. There are some later levels in the game where the scenes and scenery are so brilliantly rendered that one would wish that more video games would achieve this fidelity of pixel art. Without question, and although subjective to the highest consideration of the word, the art of The Final Station is itself a creative feat, and much like the game Kingdom, it is a hallmark of quality when it comes to modern pixel art. For the majority of levels, a careful use of shadowy foregrounding, background vistas, and simple color palette choices, often only variations of grayscale, not only enhance the narrative of the title, which we will explore in a moment, but makes for a system of combat and exploration that is easily read and manipulated. And this is all supported by a skillful use of sound design, with a foreboding soundtrack, not afraid to let moments of silence exist and accentuate prime narrative moments through rising, but inconspicuous, non-diegetic elevations. Even the menu music sets the tone of the game well in advance to clicking the start button. Add to this a range of sound effects that transmits the potency of arms, the environment, and the terror of a massive maw prying the flesh from your character, and one has an implementation of sound design that, pun aside, reverberates the hues and styles and mechanics of the game. Oral, narrative mechanical harmony by each effect. At their core, both The Final Station and The Only Traitor are 2D exploration and combat games with a dash of simulation management thrown into the pot. The main game sees you as a conductor, perhaps a reluctant one, traveling by rail throughout a dystopian land decimated, to a vast degree, by an incident known as the Visitation. In addition to this apocalyptic landscape is teeming with infected creatures, nebulous void-like zombies that do their utmost to have you, the conductor, join their ranks. As the conductor, you are gang-pressed, to a degree, into doing the bidding of various figures at play within the game's world, and you travel the lands, conducting your personal train from station to station to meet these objectives assigned to you. The Only Traitor, by and large, replicates this 2D exploration and combat, but puts you in the role of a calloused, abrasive everyman character that is attempting to escape what has become of the world by journeying through it with his trusted car. The conductor must arrive at each new station and rummage through its entirety, collecting supplies and searching for the station's master code to unblock the rail, allowing passage to the next station. Throughout these levels, you will find survivors as well that promise various rewards to you as long as you can keep them alive, fed, and healthy until you reach a safe haven by rail, which are fewer and further between than stations that have been abandoned and infested with hordes of brain chompers. Between each station, as you travel by your forever disintegrating train, which beautifully has a touch of narrative justification, you spend your time hearing words from other train conductors around the nation, a vastly enthralling and galling narrative experience in its own right, and one that the witnessing of still lingers within me now. You moreover cater to the needs of your passengers, their health and hunger, listening to their conversations and their experiences, crafting supplies for level exploration and potential foes from looted materials, as well as ensuring that the various compartments of your train do not break down as you journey, accomplished through a series of mini-games in these travel interlude sections, which could potentially be seen as needless busywork. However, there is a reason behind this, much like every aspect of the final station. The everyman character from The Only Traitor sees you as the player driving from town to town in search of a few basic supplies, water, food, fuel, and hopefully ammunition, in order to make your way to your ultimate destination. Along the way, you will also come across hapless survivors pleading with you to take them into your vehicle away from this epidemic. But you are a hardened man, and your car rather sporty, only allowing one additional passenger to be taken with you at any point in time. Where the main game has the conductor running to and fro managing decreasing bars of their passengers in the hope of the rewards that they may offer, the baseball bat-wielding character of The Only Traitor does not have you managing any interlude mechanics, as the main game does, and instead these highway travel sections are respite moments, where whichever survivor you have chosen to join you relates their narrative and their personal knowledge to you. Choosing which survivor accompanies you on the road not only affects your ability to craft ammunition and health kits, depending on their level of faculties, but each survivor possesses different knowledge and a degree of insight into the events of the land, encouraging multiple playthroughs of the game should you wish to discover the entirety of the subjective context and lore of the world. For my own run-through of The Last Traitor, I elected to take with me a historian, useless with regard to anything practical for our journey, but undoubtedly the most sage about the events and people responsible for the state of the world. While it made the game significantly more challenging to finish, the narrative revelation the historian offered relegated this difficulty increase and immeasurably increased my particular conclusion of the game. In addition to the story and narrative revealed by characters you meet throughout your exploration in both the main game and its downloadable content, you will constantly discover snippets of information left behind by the previous occupants of the levels you are playing and fighting through. This is a momentous achievement of the title and one of its greatest strengths. You will find chat logs, conversations, letters, music, books, journals, entries, logs, sticky notes, and other sundry items that in either some small way or greater revelatory significance feed you, the player, tidbits of information that slowly, over time, and searching, provide clarity to one's understanding of events and the world at large. When the game begins, there is no foreword, no prologue, no grand exposition of context. As the literary term fully discloses, you are truly in media res, within a world in motion, and your character is expected to know of this world. You, as the player, do not know of it, initially at least, And this careful, considered approach to narrative design is so profoundly intricate to the title that without it, the final station would be quite a different game indeed, and one all the more diminished for it. The slow piecing together of this clawing depression that grasps the world is an experience that I don't think I've truly felt in many other titles, and it remains one, if not the most memorable aspect of the final station. It is not a happy game. It is not a happy world. It is a world that is gripped by an existential tide that people attempt to stop, but each action is a struggle. And to what end? To what end indeed? When the main game, the final station, comes to its close, there is a lost sense of achievement, poignant and powerful, compelling for the experience that you, as the player, have gone through, but one that does, unfortunately, leave a multitude of fundamental questions unanswered. It is for this reason that I elected to take a gander at the final station while accompanied by its DLC, The Only Traitor. The Only Traitor, without giving any spoilers away, bestows to the player, again by varying accounts depending on what information you find and which survivor journeys with your everyman in the car, the answers to the many questions left open at the conclusion of the main game's story. A caveat to this, the understanding of the narrative, even with the addition of The Only Traitor, is not freely given, and it takes conscious effort to string together the fragments that you learn from both games. But when the puzzle makes sense, and it certainly does over time, the realization of how everything you have experienced comes together is an achievement in excess of infinite pop-ups appearing on your screen, telling you how great you are for slaying 1,000 zombies, or climbing every chapel cross in Paris. It is exquisite storytelling, subtle, restraint, masterfully done, and penned by a careful, considerate hand. This excellence, however, is not only limited to the narrative. The dynamics, design, and gameplay of the final station and The Only Traitor are suffused with it as well. Any level may see your character exploring the entirety of its content, from left to right of the screen, this constraint imposed by the 2D nature of the game. However, even though one has to backtrack through the level, there is almost never a moment of needless walking and trudging through areas already explored. The level design is exceedingly smart, having the unexplored hidden and blocked off from view, usually only the street level and path being visible initially, and once this has been explored, clever placement of new paths, nooks, hatches, and stairs take the player along new paths back to their origin and the far side of the map in the opposite direction, with new rooms, scenes, and areas to explore and creatures to fight constantly being revealed. Even though an area has you explore a single map, generally with your spawn at its center, there is an unyielding sense of progression throughout the stage because of this superb level design. To accompany this exploration and level movement, the combat in the game is another of the last station's triumphs. From the impactful discharge of weaponry to the terror that a swarm of zombies charging at you might bring. There is a survival element to this combat as well. Finding bullets for either your pistol in the last station or your revolver in The Only Traitor may sometimes be plentiful or challenging indeed when your reserves are running low. And when they are plentiful, there is certainly an event somewhere in your character's future which will see him discharging them all rather rapidly. As the game progresses, one or two more weapons may unlock, with more significant firepower potential, but the ammunition for these are even scarcer, and the cost to manufacture them for oneself even more dear than handgun ammunition. This management of munition plays fiendishly on the mind of the player, for there is a split-second debate that a player goes through whenever an encounter begins. Do I have enough ammo for this fight? And will I have enough left over? This lead dilemma often encourages the player to make use of environmental objects to help slay the chombies of the world, and when these are lacking, further encourages you to take the chance and engage in melee combat. the conductor having a masterful right hook, and the scallywag man having a baseball bat that even Negan himself would be envious of its kill count. Moreover, many of the final stations intricately set up encounters where a room filled to capacity with zombies is ready to overwhelm your delicious meaty organ sack resolve themselves as much as puzzles as any Twitch-based action experience. Many times, simply shooting and punching your way to victory is not enough. Timing, logic, and ordering of movements is paramount to zombie triumph. Being able to, in a fraction of a second, to figure out that chair should be grabbed, thrown at the first fast, short zombie, then a headshot to the run-of-the-mill zombie, then the toilet ripped from its position and thrown into the massive brutish infected, and then to put one round, only one, into the kamikaze zombie's body, not its head, for that would instantly kill all involved, and then run for dearest life to the nearest ladder, dash up it, and hide from the ensuing explosion. There is an appealing elegance to this, and a resounding sense of accomplishment when you pull off a feat such as this without fault. Defeating these precisely engineered moments of morose, decaying doom is a glorious deed. And this is a vastly important point for the final station and the Only Traitor. Nothing is randomly generated. Every aspect is carefully placed within the world. Perhaps loot and junk aside, it is an entirely linear experience built upon a deft crafting hand that in a contemporary video game world that currently trumpets procedural generation and open worldliness, the final station is a wondrous release and reprieve from the state. Aye, it is linear. Yes, encounters are carefully balanced. Indeed, the game is its story without other modes to play, and in truth, the main game may be finished in about 6 hours and its DLC in about 4. But what a magical, engaging, depressing, memorable 10 hours they are in total. It never overstays its engagement and knows exactly when to conclude. The final station and the Only Traitor gripped me from the very onset and did not let up until its end. It is a game that remembers the fundamentals of drama. Show, don't tell, and only show it did. It encourages participation from its player in sense-making of the world and understanding its creation. It remembers that video games are an engaging medium meant for the player to work at understanding, beyond mere inputs of the game. This it achieves with grand style, grand art, and grand gesture indeed. I have been VoxAgon, and thank you for taking your time to watch this gander at the final station and the Only Traitor. If you found it to be informative or entertaining at all, please consider subscribing, as well as sharing the video with others. Moreover, feel free to hit that like button, especially if you like chombies. If not, the dislike is just alongside it, but doesn't come with any chombies, I'm afraid. Savis and savettes, until we meet again.